the South Tipperary Art Group, I want to welcome you all here tonight, and it's terrific to see such a crowd here. And it's lovely that we have the past and the present. As you can see, there's different artists, different mediums, and it's just lovely to see how it has progressed through the years. We are really delighted to be here, and we would like to welcome Mr. Bally, and I'd like to welcome all the members, old and new, who have come. So I'd love all of you, when you go out tonight, to tell all your friends about this exhibition and encourage them to come in. And I'd particularly like to thank Marie and her staff here in the museum, because I think this is just an absolutely fantastic exhibition, and many thanks, Marie. Okay. And really, I am an imposter up here, because the person who should be here is right there. Okay, so Maureen.
We'll get her in a minute.
We will. So you're very welcome, everybody, and thank you very much for coming. God bless.
Sorry, that was Kathleen Kelly. She's the chairperson for South Tipperary Art Group, STAG. Next I'm going to call on Catherine Carey, the Councillor and Mayor of Clonmel and Cahir Borough, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. It's my absolute pleasure to be with you all on this beautiful evening in Clonmel. As you're aware, STAG was established in 1968 by a group of wonderful dedicated artists and practitioners. Two of those people are here tonight, the wonderful and talented Maureen Purcell and Nellie O'Brien. I would like to congratulate both ladies on having the strength and determination to keep the group growing for over 50 years. That is some achievement and certainly deserves another Bula bus. Thank you both for your incredible work, and may you enjoy many, many more years of success. I would also like to welcome Robert Balla to our fantastic county museum. It's a real treat for all of us to have one of Ireland's most notable artists here in our very own Clonmel. Marie tells me that Robert has connections to Clonmel. I asked Robert himself, but he's keeping it a secret. And I'm sure Marie will fill us in about that later on. Well, thank you once again to STAG, Maureen, Kathleen, Frances and Nellie. Keep her lit, ladies, and keep the passion going. Manana Heron.
Now I'm just going to ask Robert if he could say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try and keep it to a few. There's a lot of you standing, and I don't want you to get too tired. I think anniversaries are a great thing to celebrate, and it's certainly a remarkable achievement to have kept the South Tipperary Art Group going for 50 years. I'd like to congratulate those involved over those 50 years to keep this extraordinary artistic project on the go and encouraging people to make art, to enjoy art, and particularly I think the work that's been done and that has been done with the younger people. I think that's incredibly important. So I'd like to congratulate STAG for this on this great anniversary, 50 years in existence. Another anniversary that happens to occur in tandem with STAG is my own anniversary. I'm 50 years an artist this year. I exhibited first in 1968 in the Irish Exhibition of Living Art in Dublin, never believing that I'd still be at it 50 years later, but I still am. Also, I'm actually going to explain my connection to Clonmel. It began 1976. I was at home, the phone rang, and this man said, "My name is Kieran Costello. I'd like to discuss a commission with you." And I said, "I can't talk to you now. My wife's in labour and we're about to go to the hospital," which we did, and my son was born. I thought, this guy's never going to phone back again. But a couple of days later, he phoned up to say he was project manager on a project to build a supermarket, a restaurant and a bar in Clonmel. And they wanted to commission me to make some artworks for this project. I remember thinking at the time, this is really exciting, interesting. And then when I met him and he told me of the scale of the project, I was astounded. For the supermarkets, they wanted this kind of mural thing, which was about 50 feet long. And I'd never done anything like that before. And then they said to me, "We'd like you to feature something of local interest in the paintings that would be in the bar and restaurant." And I remember thinking, what'll I do? And reading a bit about Tipperary and Clonmel, and I wasn't coming up with anything I thought that was interesting or unusual. And I happened to meet a friend of mine who was a barrister, and he said, "Well, what about Lawrence Sterne?" And I had to sort of say, "Who's Lawrence Sterne?" And he very quickly reprimanded me and said, "Probably one of the most famous writers in the English language. In fact, the man who invented the novel." And I said, "Oh, yes, but is he not English? He was born in Clonmel." So I said, "Oh, okay." So I started to research Lawrence Sterne, and I read his book, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy Gentleman. And I found it hard at the start because it was written 200 years ago, and the language seems a little antiquated to us now. But what I found, once I got into the mood of the thing, I was captivated by this guy who had a really bizarre sense of humour and a really imaginative way of putting a book together. In those days, of course, there was no such thing as photographic illustrations or particularly the use of colour or whatever. So in this book, he introduced, for instance, a marbled page in the middle of the book. So you're reading through the book and suddenly you have full colour, which must have been astounding in those days. So I was really taken by this guy, so I decided that I would try and do something about him. And it was another friend who said, "Before you do anything, you have to go to London and see Sir Joshua Reynolds' famous portrait of Lawrence Sterne, which is in the National Portrait Gallery in London." So I happened to be in London a short time afterwards and went into the National Portrait Gallery and started trying to find this bloody picture. Couldn't find it anywhere. I'm walking around and going up and down. And obviously one of the attendants saw my kind of exasperation and said, what are you looking for? And I said, I'm looking for the portrait of Lawrence Sterne by Sir Joshua Reynolds. And he said, "Oh, that has been taken down for restoration." And I must have looked so dejected that he said, "Hold on a second." And he disappeared and then came back and said, "Shh, come this way." And he brought me to this little door, and we opened up the door, and I walked in behind him into the back corridors of the National Gallery in London, into the restoration department. Now, at the time, the portrait of Lawrence Sterne was estimated to be worth 4.5 million sterling. And he reaches up into the racks and he hands it to me. So I've this painting worth 4.5 million sterling in my hands, looking at it and trying to take it in. And the next minute, there's a roar from down the corridor. "What the hell is going on here?" And two fellas in white coats came up and grabbed the picture from me and put it back up in the rack and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm just an ordinary person or whatever." And they said, "Get out." So I was thrown out of the National Gallery into Trafalgar Square, And what I thought afterwards, one, I hoped that the attendant who was so kind to me didn't get into trouble, because you have to remember this was the mid-70s when the bombing campaign was going on, and all Irish people were suspect in Britain, and here was one Irishman handling a British national treasure, you know. But I never knew whether he got into trouble or not. But from that, I was really, by the way, taken by Reynolds' portrait of Stern. I thought it was fantastic. So I used that as a reference for my portrait of Lawrence Stern, which hung in the restaurant in this development in Clonmel. The paintings from that, my interpretation of the life and opinions of Tristram Shandy gentleman are hanging on the stairs up to the restaurant in Tesco at the moment. So if anyone goes in for a cup of coffee, they can have a look at the life and opinions of Tristram Shandy by Robert Balla. So that's, I suppose that's my connection with Clonmel, but I don't know if it's important for you in Clonmel, but it was very important for me as a young artist to get this commission. And I mean, believe it or not, the commission was from an outfit called 5 Star Supermarket, who were bought over by Quinsworth, who were bought over by Tesco. So I lost track of the paintings, and it was Maureen who brought me to see them today. And they didn't look too bad after, what, 76 to now? I'm bad at the maths, but it's a long time ago. I'd just like to say a few words now before I finish about STAG, and not just STAG, but organisations like it around the country. I believe they're incredibly important. And they give a lie to an answer that I always get from politicians when I try to argue for more funding for the arts and more support for artists, etc., etc. And they always say, there's no votes in the arts. And I just don't believe that to be true. I don't know of one town, village in the country that doesn't have an arts group, a choir, a local drama group. In fact, the people who aren't interested in the arts in this country are the minority. The majority of people in some shape or form are involved in the arts, go to the arts, enjoy the arts, and I really do think that it's about time that this state, through its politicians, caught up with that. I just read some statistics a year or so ago. In Ireland, we spend 0.1% of our GDP on support for the arts. The European average among the, well, now 28, shortly to be 27 countries in Europe, is 0.6% of GDP, which means that if we were to not be the best country in Europe, if we were simply to be on a par with the average spend on the arts in Europe, we would need to increase the funding for the arts by 600%. Over the last 8 or 9 years, this state has reduced funding for the arts by 25%. That's where we are at an official level. And the people who keep the arts going are people like you. So I want to thank you all for your interest in the arts, and I really want to congratulate STAG for 50 years of promoting and encouraging the arts in this town and the surrounding area. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. That was fantastic. I'm going to call on Maureen now to say a few words. She can't get away, so...
Delighted to see everyone here today, or tonight I should say, particularly a lot of the, we'll say, our former members. And I mightn't recognise you, you know, because I look the same, except I'm very grey and white and wrinkly, but you've all changed, because you've become adults. So if I don't know you, now I do know some obviously, but if I don't know you, please make yourself known to me, because I don't remember that well when you're 72. It's not so easy. Anyway, I just want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. For all those who did submit paintings or artworks of any kind, you're wonderful. There are another about 100, 200 maybe of Junior STAG who were former members, who are actually, their careers are in the arts and in craft work as well. But obviously I couldn't Google everybody. I Googled as many as I could, and I didn't have emails and addresses for everyone. So anyone I did, well, thank you for answering and thank you for submitting work. Some people, because of timeline, they just didn't have time to get stuff in, but I'm sure they'll come in to see the exhibition. And I just want to thank Robert for coming here. He's so kind, and I really appreciate that. Because he's giving his time, and he had to come down from Dublin, and I did bring him in to see his paintings, and he thought they were not too bad. And they're actually wonderful, and anyone who hasn't been in there should go into Tesco's, into the cafe there, and have a look at the paintings. They're absolutely superb. We did have him actually in the Arts Centre, was it 2 years ago, Robert? Yeah. I asked Robert, could we borrow them? But he said they're not mine anymore. And anyway, there was shenanigans. We finally got them. They were up in Tesco headquarters, and it was like, I don't know what it was like to try and get them out of them. But we did get them. And we had our first exhibition down in the Arts Centre. When we were involved in the Arts Centre, we had the first exhibition down there after we left Place for You, when the Arts Centre was being renovated, and that was a very good exhibition and very well attended, and now it's over to Cliona. She has to continue on, and she has continued on where the rest of us left off. I just want to thank you all again just for coming here, to Marie and all the staff, and of course to Catherine, who's opening our other exhibition on Tuesday night in the library, and you're all welcome again. Robert won't be coming down again. Once is enough. Excuse me. But you are all welcome again. And do tell your friends where we are, because we'd like loads of people to come into this fabulous place. There's another terrific exhibition in there, the permanent exhibition. And you all should be coming in regularly, because they're forever changing things. And it's a lovely place just to spend a half an hour. Again, hopefully we'll see you all on Tuesday night. Thank you, everybody, and everybody in the museum who worked so hard to get this up. We really appreciate it. And John is there, and Robert is one of us as well. Robert is our graphic designer, and he's just Mr. Friday. He was with us in 1968, 69, up to about 70, I think. And Dolores is there someplace. I see Dolores as well. So all the committee of STAG, and we do have a working group, by the way. We have roughly 8 workers in STAG, and without them we would never get paintings up, we'd never get anything done. And to them, thank you very much. Frances is usually there, and I don't know where she is at the moment, but she's there someplace. And we want, she's there. We just want to thank every single one of you. I mean, if I keep mentioning names, I'm going to forget people and I'll leave them out, but I don't want to do that. Just want to thank you all for all your help, to me personally, to our committee, and we would love you to keep turning up to STAG on Tuesday nights, in the art room over in Peter and Paul's, and on Wednesday mornings, not at the moment because we've closed for summer, but on Wednesday mornings, please God, in September, in the Arts Centre, because we have a lot of people who don't like travelling at night time, and they go to the Arts Centre and they absolutely adore the studio in the Arts Centre because it's so bright. So thank you everybody, and just enjoy the exhibition.
I'm just going to round up the evening by saying thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you for the members, current members and the past members who submitted. It's fantastic to come in and to see from small apples, acorns, that what a person's life, how it can change from being involved in a small group, an art group. And it's wonderful to see the variety of the disciplines, from architect to artist to sculpture to brooch making, my great friend Lisa Keane down there. And it's wonderful. It is just wonderful to have almost like a retrospective of over the last 50 years. And it's a huge credit to you. I'm sorry that we couldn't involve everybody in the exhibition. There was just so many that wanted to submit for time. As Maureen said, people couldn't submit. But I think we achieved a really great cross-section of disciplines from professional artists now who started with STAG. I was there myself, excuse me, as a child. Not a child, I was 16. I wasn't such a child. But I remember actually the painting that Robert was first commissioned here in Clonmel. When I made my Holy Communion back in the day, I came out of, I don't know if anyone remembers, Ursula Grace. She used to work in a bakery. Yes. I remembered her name last night, and I came out in my communion dress. My granny brought me in to Ursula. Ursula wanted to give me a box of cakes for my communion, so I came out with the box of cakes, and I stood and I saw this artwork on the wall, and I was just absolutely gobsmacked. And then when I came here 15 years ago, and I walked into the gallery or into the store, we have the store is next door, and all the art collection is in there. And I saw this plastic and these huge big boards. It's actually 80 feet long. It's 80 feet. It's huge. And we took them out only there around 3 weeks ago. So they've been in storage since the 80s. So we're hoping next year that we'll get some money together to actually conserve them and hopefully put them back on display back in where they were originally. So that's one of our kind of long-term projects. It might take a year or 2 years depending on anyone that would like to fund. So if there's any funders out there that would like to help me conserve these, it would be great. But seriously, the exhibition, we're really proud of it. You should be very proud of it yourself, past and present members. I just want to say thank you to my staff here in the museum. They did Trojan work. It's there's a lot of work with hanging an exhibition, and Maureen, just absolutely amazing. STAG have been just incredible. Dolores and Francis and Kathleen and everybody in STAG, keep up the good work, and we'll see you outside for a chat. Thanks.